Welcome, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yep, fabulous. Okay, thank you for joining us today for our special panel that's called Lift Off to Leadership. We're delighted to have so many of you in the audience. My name is Sumati Sharma. I'm a partner at Oliver Wyman. And also, I'm the founder and co-chair of the Women in Aviation and Aerospace Charter in the UK. I founded the charter in 2018 with UK government. I was a senior executive at Virgin Atlantic at the time. And you know, some of our signatories back then, so easyJet was one of our founding signatories, BA, which is a part of IAG, Heathrow, many others. And the year I founded the charter was when gender pay gap reporting became a mandatory requirement in UK. And then I realized I have to use my privilege, you know, for good. I have the ability to drive positive change in the industry, and 5 years since we've launched, we now have 250 signatories. So today, our panel, our wonderful panel, we're going to focus on inclusive leadership. And inclusive leaders are individuals, like those on my panel today. They're highly aware of their own biases. They actively seek out and consider different perspectives to inform their decision-making day to day in their, you know, super important jobs, and they collaborate with others. So they naturally create a sense of belonging. And you know, they ensure the people around them feel valued. I work with many of them day to day as well, both in this role and in the past. And you know, what I really want to do today is shine the brightest possible light on those who can inspire others to drive change in our industry. So I'm delighted today. I've got Adrian, Sophie, Pieter and Güliz, and I'll give you a super short bio on them in a minute. It's not easy work to translate good intentions to great outcomes at all levels of an airline and through different departments. So I'm going to do some questions, but I also want you guys to prepare your questions. We've got sort of 40 minutes today. I'll run through mine, and I really then want to open up to you guys to ask them anything that you wish to ask on the topic of being great leaders. So super quick bios on each. So Adrian, thank you for being with us today. So joined IAG, International Airlines Group, in 2021, and you're the head of people and culture, so accountable for leadership, culture, talent, diversity, and reward. And before, I mean, with 30 years of transformation and change experience, and he was at BT before that for 13 years. So Adrian, great to have you with us today.
Having me.
Great. And next, Sophie, who was on the panel before, probably needs no introduction, but really joined easyJet in 2007, now Chief Commercial Officer, and one of the women in UK aviation I admire the most. So Sophie, great to have you on the panel. Pieter. So Pieter, great to have you with us. He's EVP and Chief Strategy Officer, Air France-KLM Group. In 2013, Pieter became EVP Commercial and Revenue, responsible for worldwide network pricing and revenue management, and JV and alliances across the group. And he moved to the Chief Strategy Officer role around a year ago. So welcome to Lisbon, and welcome to our panel, Pieter.
Thank you.
And last and not least, Güliz Öztürk, hopefully I've pronounced that correctly, Chief Executive Officer of Pegasus Airlines. She spent the first 15 years of her career at Turkish Airlines, and then joined Pegasus in 2005, became CCO in 2010, and now is CEO. And with over 30 years of experience in our industry, and now a female CEO, I'm delighted to have you on our panel as well today. So we'll get started with our questions. Adrian, you're up first. So, first question I'm going to ask all of you. So why are you passionate about inclusive leadership and diversity and inclusion?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I think the first thing for me is about being a parent. I've got 2 boys and a young girl, and they're all very, very different. They have different superpowers, skills, different things that they're interested in. And I really want them to grow up in a world where they're valued for who they are rather than what they are. They're very lucky in the world they're in today is vastly different to the one that I grew up in. I grew up in a very small rural community 50 years ago in the 70s, where attitudes and what was acceptable behaviour were very, very different then. And I'm really pleased that the kids now have got much higher levels of awareness and are much more engaged around inclusion and diversity. So I want the best for them. And then in my role, I head up HR, and I think that's a role that comes with real privilege and a real responsibility. So I get a chance to hold the mirror up to the business. I get to work with leaders. I get to shape our policies and our strategies. And I think it's really important not to be a bystander on diversity and inclusion and to lean in and get involved. And so, I try to make as much of a difference as I can, just so I think it's the right thing to do, and I can see the value that having a more diverse organization creates.
Fabulous. So if we zoom in on IAG specifically, how do you approach target setting in this space on diversity inclusion as part of your talent strategy, particularly post-COVID-19? A lot of people did leave the industry. The sort of teams are changing quite a bit. And what plans and actions are you really focused on a management team? And what challenges do you face?
Got a lot of questions. I've been there 2 years. So I joined just after the pandemic, and it was a new role that was created, and one of the first things we decided to do was to set a target for gender diversity for our senior leadership and a target of 40% by 2025. We're at 36% now. That's gone up from around 32% when I first joined. So some really good progress. But the target itself isn't important. It's about how it enables us to create real accountability within the business and the senior leadership teams. It's about how it helps us to track the progress that we're making, and it helps us to keep the focus on. And I think it's something which, if you don't pay attention to it, can easily slip to a secondary concern or consideration. So for us, that's been really key. The things that we've been focused on to help deliver on that agenda is being really mindful whenever we're making appointments or making any decisions around talent as to, are we looking at the most diverse talent to select from? So that means a lot of work that we do with our search partners and putting the challenge onto them to ensure that they're tapping into the global talent that's out there, thinking sometimes around the margins of where we might be able to get folks that have got brilliant mindsets and capabilities that would be a real asset to the business. There's a bit around us working with senior leaders to make sure that the talent focus is right there. And then we do lots of work across the different operating companies, across the different airlines, just to keep the focus there, to keep driving policy forwards, to share good practice across the teams. I think the challenge for us, we are 9 appointments away from achieving our 40% target, which sounds like a really small number. But that also means that every time somebody leaves our senior leadership group and leaves the business, that can have an equally big impact on whether or not that target becomes achievable or not. So we have to really think about every single move that we're making and the impact it can have. And the other bit for me is we pick gender as a bit of a lighthouse for us. It clearly isn't the only factor to take into account when you're trying to create an inclusive business, but it's one that we had the data on. It was more visible. We knew where we stood and we knew where we could get to. But we want it to be all aspects of diversity and inclusion. And one of the challenges for an international business is what, for example, race and ethnicity might mean in the UK has a very different social context in other parts of the group that we're operating in, and quite often a very different legal context. So whilst we're trying to do the right thing, there's a risk, I think, of the unintended consequences as you create the problem you're trying to solve by raising awareness around a subject or not treading very carefully and purposefully when you're looking to raise awareness and to start driving change.
And yeah, I can really see that is, so I'm based in the UK and Adrian is, so Sophie, but I know in different parts of Europe and the world, there are very different ways to talk about this subject as well. And, like you mentioned, actually, the word race is not used in certain countries at all. And yeah. I can say that as an Indian woman, but I totally understand what you're saying.
And just a very practical example, we started looking at nationality as one aspect of understanding more, because it was something which we thought meant the same thing in each country. And then we were asked the definition is, do you mean nationality at birth? Do you mean nationality as to what's on somebody's passport? Or do you put nationality in terms of how they identify? So even something which seems really simple and straightforward to capture data around creates different problems for us. So that's the stuff that we're just continuing to work through.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. So Sophie, moving to you, asking the same first question. So why are you so passionate about, inclusive leadership and diversity and inclusion?
Yeah, great question. Hopefully, can you hear me? Not yet. Shall I shout? Shall I use this mic? Oh, am I on? Yeah. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me now. Great. Why am I so passionate about it? I think being female kind of makes you naturally passionate about something when you really want to drive something. But I do think we do need to, and we talked about this earlier, I think we need to think about the dialogue about inclusivity. I think that is critical as much as it is about diversity. We want people to show up and be themselves and not to pretend to be something else. Even if you are a white middle-aged man, we want you to be yourself. So that's really important for me, that people can show up as themselves and not try and pretend to be something else, regardless of any physical, characteristics that you hold. But for me, I think the big game changer for me personally in my own journey to get here was seeing that authenticity in a female leader, which for me was really important. So when I first joined easyJet 16 and a half years ago, being quite honest, the female leaders that I saw in the business were quite masculine in their behaviours. So they would swear very freely, they would slam their fists on the desk. They were almost ultra alpha male in their behaviours. Maybe that was how they thought they had to fit in, but I would look up to them and say, do you know what, that's not me. Maybe I'm not going to be a female leader in this business or in business generally. The game changer for me actually was when Carolyn McCall joined in 2010, because she brought a different level of authenticity. So she was firm but fair, but she didn't resort to being the kind of alpha male characteristics. So she wouldn't swear, she wouldn't slam her fist on the table. You knew when she disagreed with something, she made that very clear, but she did that in a way that was more attractive and approachable to me as a female. And also she was a mum, and that for me was really important. Building on your point, is kind of, having been able to see someone that can be a CEO of an airline and have kids. I was like, okay, so it is possible, because you feel like, is there a trade-off I have to make? Can I be, if I'm a mum, then I can't be a senior female leader, and which path do I want to take? And being able to see Carolyn do both made me realise that this is something that actually could be accessible to me as a career development path. So I would honestly say visible female leaders that show that you can just be yourself, and male leaders that can just be themselves. I know you well, Peter, and just that authenticity is so critical, that to create that inclusive environment where everyone feels safe, that people can speak up, speak out, can feel that they have a voice in the room, I think is really important. And the more visible that we can show that as a behaviour that is the right behaviour, that's an authentic behaviour, the more we're going to get the best ideas from people, the more we're going to say nothing's a stupid idea, and people feel that really nothing is a stupid idea. And I think that's critical for us all to be successful as in our industry, is in terms of creating that environment, and whether it's about female leadership or gender diversity or ethnicity or whatever. I think actually if you take all of that out and you say, we need to create an environment where people can be themselves, people can bring any ideas forward, we can encourage that kind of a safe environment that people can speak up. I think for me that's the critical thing that clearly you can tell I'm passionate about, because I'm talking about it a lot, but I think that's really important if we want to develop as an industry and get new ideas in and evolve and be innovative going forward.
Fabulous. And so one of the few chief commercial officers who's female, of a major European airline. How do you see both your and easyJet's role, because there's roles in both, to help our industry with the enormous challenge of becoming more inclusive and welcoming people from all backgrounds to it, and attracting the next generation, the people who'll be on this stage in 10, 15 years' time?
Yeah, and I think it's a great challenge, isn't it? I think the biggest challenge we've got is actually how do you get to the grassroots level and encourage people really from school age upwards that they can have a career in aviation. I mean, we did some research a few years ago and we asked children to draw a picture of a pilot, and they drew male pilots. We need to start changing that kind of dialogue to say, actually, you can do any job, and regardless of your characteristics. So I do think we need to get into schools. and I think we need to show not just that it's about pilots, because that is definitely something we've got to shift in terms of gender, but also just in terms of roles and careers, and just have people telling their stories. So, you know, I was really fortunate to be part of a round table at number 10 a few weeks ago that was run by Dial, and that was talking about, and that was a lot of tech industry, and we had Formula One there, we had Christian Horner at the table, we were there for, obviously as an aviation representative. And there, I think what we've got to do is get into schools and talk about people's journeys and just show that, you know, this is accessible to anybody. You know, I didn't come from a privileged background. I went to a state school and I've made it here, but it's about attitude, it's about energy, it's about passion, it's about putting your hand up. And actually, if you come in with that mindset, then you can really achieve anything you want to. So one of my big personal mantras is inspiring people to achieve more than they thought possible. You know, I would never have dreamt of sat in this chair and be in this role. And I think it's, you know, it's kind of say, look, if I can do it, you can do it. So I think we need to get more of that out there at a grassroots level to open people's minds to think, regardless of which school you're at or where you've been brought up and where you've been born, all of these things are achievable if you just put the right attitude to it. And so I think it's having that, telling people the journey, making it visible. We're trying to do that at easyJet, but I would love us to be able to do it more nationally and globally within our network footprint, because there's so much you can do, and I'm sure you're all the same with your airlines. You can do it in your local area. You know, we've got headquarters in Luton. We can go to Luton schools. You're only touching that number of people. You know, how do you get out and actually talk to all the schools in Europe? You know, are there some, my mad idea, can we do some videos that actually could be shown and made available in some sort of central library that all schools, regardless of where they are, can access it? You don't have to be near an airport, you don't have to be near the headquarters of a building for you to be able to get that story out there. So I would love to create a bit of a movement, you know, at least across Europe, that we can give these journeys to inspire people, that make people who might go, do you know what, actually, I could do that. And so that's the bit for me I would like us to do.
I see a glint in your eye, and I see an idea forming, which I think we will be discussing further around creating such videos to attract the next generation. Thank you, Sophie. So, Pieter, same first question to you. Why are you so passionate about inclusive leadership?
I think from my perspective, it's and I would like to thank you for linking inclusiveness to leadership, because I think it's a matter of leadership. And when you are in a leading role, what you are most concerned about is to build a team that is the strongest possible team that you can think of, because you have a task to fulfill together. And during my career, I found out that diverse teams are usually significantly stronger than non-diverse teams. And diverse in a matter of gender diversity, cultural diversity, any kind of diversity. And I was inspired at the time also by Inside Colors. I don't know if you know, I guess most of you have known Inside Colors. You have people that are a bit red and they want to take decisions very quickly and be short, be brief, be gone. Is the idea of, I'm a bit red, to be honest. But you need to balance that with other characteristics. And you could say, okay, procedural behavior, analytical perspective in the blue people are very important to balance the red, because they will go too quickly and jump to the conclusions too easily. So for me, inclusiveness is about building teams that have diversity built in it, in order to make the teams in decision making and in running the business as strong as you can. And I found out that one of the, I think, strongest teams that I've ever led was a joint revenue management team of France-KLM, where coincidentally we were Dutch men and French women. And everybody was a bit jealous at me that I was leading that team, because it was really a fantastic team of diverse people with different mindset, different backgrounds, different also educational backgrounds that Sophie was focusing at. And simply the fact that we were different from each other made us able to challenge each other in a better way than if we were all the same. I've also worked in teams in network planning, for example, in KLM. We were all the same. We were the same background, same school, same analytics, same stuff. And I think it's really good to mix and to make sure that you have diverse teams. On the inclusiveness part, I think it is a logical consequence of that. If you have in your leadership style that kind of conviction, you will be by definition inclusive towards different people and different background, etc. So that's why I'm really passionate about it, because I think it should be something that every leader should embrace. It should be in all of our natural leadership style to think like that, because it will improve the performance of our company.
So Pieter, you're one of the, truly authentic male allies I know and observed in the aviation industry. What do you think really needs to happen to make a systematic change to have many more inclusive leaders in the next 15 years to really shake up our industry? How do we drive that more authentic male advocacy in the industry?
It's an extremely difficult question, Sumati, that you are asking me, because if you're saying, yeah, it's authentic, then it is something that is naturally inside of you. And to explain authenticity is something that is very difficult to do. But yeah, I do think that as I mentioned also in your previous question, it has to do with the real conviction that it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, and what you can do, and how you can contribute to a company. And we are in a lucky circumstance because we have a very diverse company by itself. We are in the world. But you have to take, so I mean we are a worldwide operating company, but you have to take specific measures in order to make sure that people get equal chances in that environment. So for example, we have specific programs in our company to make sure that talents that we find across the world in certain countries get the possibility to also come to the head office in Paris and in Amsterdam and take very different jobs and are not stuck in their cultural background and environment as we did in the past before. But it requires a specific program to support those people to move around globally and get opportunities that otherwise they would not have gotten and they would stay in the particular country. It also requires so apart from specific programs and target setting and all of that needs to be done in order to break through the natural behavior, it also needs a leadership style where you want to be in contact with people. And it sounds so stupid and obvious that I'm almost hesitating to say it. But in order to build diverse teams and in order to be inclusive as a leader, you have to know the people. You have to know what is important to them. You have to know what are their backgrounds. How can you be inclusive if you don't even know what the background is? So it means that you have to have time and attention to individual people in your organization, no matter how large the organization is. I experienced that at France-KLM very often when I had a one-to-one conversation with someone, and they said, Pieter, thank you very much for your time. And I said, I want you to stop saying that. This is my job. This is something that I genuinely feel is extremely important to perform my job as well as I can. And it's part of that I know you, that I know where you're coming from, what is driving you, and where you want to go in the future. Because only when I know, I can use that knowledge and that information to support career development and to make sure that the best person ends at the best job that we have in mind. And I honestly don't care whether it is a man, a woman, an Indian or a Dutch or a French or whatever. It's really not relevant at all in the way I look at it. I look at it from a perspective of what is best for you, your personal development in the company, because I'm convinced that it will be then best for us as well in the company interest.
Great, thank you. Güliz, so same first question to you. Why are you so passionate about inclusive leadership?
Thank you. I think, I don't know the vice versa. I mean, I'm at the managerial position since probably 20 years. I mean, I'm in this airline business for more than 30 years, and I spent this at the managerial level more than 30 years, and really I don't know how to do it otherwise. I mean, what I do, I believe, of course my team is here, I mean, they have to talk, maybe, not myself, but inclusive leadership is the way to go, I believe. Because why? I mean, we have to think about our own careers first. I mean, when we first started, when we first joined, where we want to develop ourselves, where we want to learn something in the business. I mean, when do you feel that you are there and adding a value to the company? When do you feel that? If you are treated equally, if you are treated fairly, if you say something and the others are listening to you without killing the ideas, even if it is a very stupid one because you are new to the business. So this inclusiveness makes the companies successful and also makes the leaders successful. So it's that for that person, but at the same time, it's for the leader itself. Yeah, because it's also, if I want to be successful in my position, whatever it is, then I have to keep this with my team together, listening to them, working, being open to those ideas, and have that diversity. Otherwise, if we choose people to work with from same backgrounds, same gender, same age, I think it would be so boring. The life would be so boring. We would talk the same type of things. So, I, for example, myself, if my team is diverse and do not look like me when I'm doing the business, I got a different type of satisfaction from them. Normally, this, of course, creates in itself as a kind of, let's say, sometimes aggression, because you just, for doing the business, you're trying to persuade each other or the teammates. But then there is the way to go. Then there are the new ideas. Then you also improve yourself. And I, of course, had a long journey coming to this, to these ideas and to this perspective. And also, up until I got the role of CEO last year, for example, I wasn't aware that this role would take so much attention. It was well beyond my expectation. For me, what would take an attention is, like, I spent 30 years in this business, and in Turkey, the airline sector, they know me, the civil aviation sector, and I'm very proud taking this leadership role, and my team would be, the company would appreciate that, my team will appreciate this, but beyond that, being a female had overridden all. Which I wasn't happy at the first side when I heard those, because you are a female CEO, so great. And I was just answering back I spent 30 years, more than 30 years in this business, so it's, I think, more valuable. However, still, and then I thought, if it takes so much attention, this means there is a need and there is being an example, a good example, being a role model, really paves the way for other female colleagues who will follow the same path. So that gave me the idea that I have to be more visible, and I have to show that if I can do this, others also may do it. This is the only, I think my mission is this. And then I will be the enabler. If I can do it. I don't know how extensive it can be, because I really totally agree with you. We're taking lots of initiatives for gender diversity, gender equality, but I think for youngsters, we work as Pegasus, we work with the universities, for pilots who would be balanced in terms of gender, for example, to have more technicians, if there are any, from the universities. However, we should work more at the country level, at the geographically, at the sector level. We should do more, come together and have this collaboration with the universities, with the NGOs, so as to leave the future to leave the future who will not be called female CEOs, for example. We will see those days. Maybe it's not very short. I agree. Of course, I admit it's a long journey. However, we should not see this a kind of an initiative, a side initiative while we are doing our business. No. It's even if whatever crisis we see, even if what kind of a challenge we see, this diversity, inclusive leadership should be in the main agenda and should be in our daily routine. That's why, I mean, and besides all, I see this also a kind of really a basic human rights to have the equal opportunities. That's why I'm so passionate.
Love it. And I'm going to say it is a real pleasure to have a female CEO on the panel. So can you tell us more? You know, you've mentioned a little bit about what you do at Pegasus, and also some advice maybe for people in the room. There's less than, I think, 5 of the top 100 airline CEOs are female. So any tips for any aspiring airline CEOs that are in the room? So there are 2 questions.
Let me start with Pegasus. Yes, we have, since many years, we have had many initiatives on this diversification, equality, inclusion. And the climate at Pegasus is, the company is doing this model since 2005. Normally the company is established in 1990, but this business model is new, like 18 years now. And we are still having a startup spirit, although we have grown to 100 aircraft. That startup spirit, of course, it's not like in the 2005, that days, but still we have that spirit. So, I mean, we are careful not to be, let's say, killing the new ideas. We're careful, the management team, we're careful to listen what our teams are talking about, what they want to bring to the table. So this was in the DNA of Pegasus, and I'm really sponsoring this and motivating this within the company. But then this year, we have brought all those initiatives under one umbrella. We call it Pegasus Harmony, where we set some specific targets, mainly on gender equality right now, but it's a DEI program. So being a sponsor to this program shows a commitment. I mean, you may do lots of initiatives there and here and there, but once you bring it under one brand and being committed to that brand within the company, then that increases the awareness. And we're now working on our language. We have a dictionary, what type of words we should not use, because in Turkish language there are lots of words which is role associated, gender associated, like strong as a man for a lady, for example. Do we call like that? I mean, like a lady like a male, which means that she's strong, she's aggressive. So there are some words and terms we use. So we are working on those. We have, and we will be also monitoring the progress, what we would be making, especially on the managerial roles, if we can be giving the equal opportunities. I'm always saying equal opportunities because this is it should be a balanced issue. I mean, as you have said very correctly, the right person for the right job, the right competencies is the key. That's for sure. I mean, it cannot be a male or a female to be selected for a job. But the equal opportunity, the mindset should be there. If the opportunity is there, yes, and then you can choose the right person. I mean, freely, without the gender. So this is, I mean, an initiative which I'm also very excited with because it's the first year now, and we will assess the progress. Maybe next year I will be talking here with more the different initiatives we have taken within the company and the progress. In terms of tips, I mean, it's like male or female. It doesn't, I think it's not necessary to make it on a gender basis, but as a professional, I mean, I always, when I talk with the young people, also with the young professionals, I'm always saying that you have to invest in yourself, in your career, develop yourself. If you have any opportunities given by your company for improving yourself, technically, in terms of your competencies, leadership programs, take all of them. I mean, without looking at, I don't have the time because I have my family or because I'm very busy with the work. No, take all of them, get the maximum out of it. And of course, if you do this, then, and if you're open to learning throughout your career without looking at your position, then yeah, you will get the result of it. This is what I'm always, work hard. But this is something that I can say, like female or male, it doesn't matter, for all the young professionals.
Fabulous. Thank you for sharing about Pegasus Harmony as well. Great name. Did you choose it? Did you choose the name, Pegasus Harmony?
Yeah, Pegasus let's not say like that. It's an inclusive environment. They brought many alternatives and they said, we love this Pegasus Harmony because this means that harmony in music, there are different neo rhythms, and then there's a music played. And I said, okay, if you liked it, I liked it. So
Fabulous.
We decided together.
Well, I like it. So there you go. Okay.
Inclusively.
We have one of our panelists has to take a flight quite soon. So what we have to do is I'll open up to questions, but I'll probably just take one or two. So if there's anyone who has a question, I think Charlie has a mic in the audience. We have a question there. Thanks, Felipe. Please introduce yourself and ask your question to one of our panelists.
Hello, my name is Anita. I work at Heathrow Airport as Strategic Partnerships Manager. I've just finished a 2-year tenure as a Diversity Network Lead at the airport for culture and ethnicity. So it's definitely been a fascinating panel. Thank you very much. I guess one observation first is that I think we need to switch our mindsets to think not that in spite of our backgrounds and who we are, we can be successful. It's because of our backgrounds and who we are that we can be successful and a leader one day. But my question specifically, and is based on experience really, is that with progress in ED&I, there's that offset of isolation that can happen. Some people feeling like they're not being represented, or tokenistic kind of behaviors are what are progressing that diversity. So I just wanted your thoughts on how we can continue to progress with inclusivity, but also address the fact that there will be that element of people feeling isolated because of those efforts.
Okay. Who would like to take that one?
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't hear the question.
Can you paraphrase the question, Sumati?
Huh?
Can you paraphrase the question?
Oh, yeah.
It's hard to hear up here.
So I think what I heard was, with the great drive in diversity and inclusion, you can sometimes get people can feel either only or double onlys. I don't know if you've heard of that. So I'll just check I'm getting it right. So if you're the only woman of the room or the only diverse woman in the room, you could be double only, and it's the tokenistic side, then you can feel lonely. I don't know if that makes sense. So it's how can we deal with that? Have I paraphrased that correctly? Okay.
Well, I guess for me, it's demonstrating that we value your ideas, opinions, and contribution because of who you are, and not. I think Sophie covered it in terms of, ticking boxes to say how do you identify, but because you have a unique set of experience, you have a unique set of backgrounds, and you have a voice to be heard. And I think if the focus is on that and encouraging ideas from folks, and I think we were talking about how do you create a more inclusive place. I think for leaders, if you notice that there are people dominating the conversation in the room and there are others that are not having their voice heard, you need to be aware of that. And you need to check yourself if you're the first one that jumps in, or you need to ensure that you're finding a way to encourage ideas from others. But I don't think it's the encouraging ideas because of their identity. They're encouraging their ideas because they have a really strong contribution to make.
Yeah, just building on that, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is we're doing a lot of work with our leadership team at the moment Should I switch mics? I know. To understand how do you get the quietest voice in the room heard. and making sure that everyone is very aware of who's sitting around the table, and making sure that you have a responsibility, even if you're not leading the meeting, because you always defer to the most senior person in the room, that you still have a role to say, Peter, what do you think? You know, even if I'm not the CEO in the room, I still want to make sure that, so every single leader has, or every single individual in the room has a role to play to make sure the quietest voice is heard. So we're doing a lot of work at easyJet to look at that leadership behavior to say, be aware of the dynamics around the table and making sure that you're not a bystander and you pull other people into the room, even if you're not chairing the meeting as such. So I think that's a critical role, building on what you said, Adrian.
It's very interesting what you are saying, because indeed it's a fact that how you run a meeting is determining to some extent how inclusive you are. And when to speak and when not to speak as a leader in the room and as the chairman or chairwoman of that meeting, it's incredibly important to stay quiet for a while, to make sure that everybody has had the ability to speak up and to give its perspective on the matter. And therefore, once again, compliments to you, Sumati, that you have linked the topic, because we are speaking about diversity and inclusion very often as a topic in itself, but it is about leadership. And compliments to you for the fact that you have put the spotlight on the fact that we are talking about genuine leadership here.
Great. We have time for one more question if we have one in the audience. See? No? Okay, I will ask one last. Oh, we have one here? Okay, there. There. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't spot that. I wasn't looking well enough.
Oh, sorry.
Please introduce yourself and
hello,
ask your question.
Good afternoon. So, Mina from easyJet Digital Department. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for bringing up that subject onto diversity and inclusion. I just want to ask one question which is personal to me, and I think might be talking to many other people, is talking about the neurodiversity. We've seen so far one airline that, and maybe Mrs. Estelle, which is the chief officer for Virgin, can talk about it because she's quite involved in that. How do you, and is it a possibility that in the future airline will incorporate a neurodiversity? I'm talking people like having specific need like ADHD, we're talking dyslexia. We are confronted nowadays to more and more kids growing with those special difficulties. They have a brilliant skill when we know how to handle them. And I was wondering if there is any program or any eventually hope that we can see airline more open to neurodiversity.
I may just start answering. It's those, of course, it also needs the grounds of the educational system. So airlines or the corporates or the companies are at the end of the list. But as long as, I mean, for Turkey, for example, we are not there yet. However, if our educational system gives the opportunity, and it should, gives the opportunity to those people who has brilliant skills, but can be seen as an outlier, for example, then at the end, we as the airline, or as the companies or the corporates, we're looking to recruit the right person to the right job. If the skills are there, why not? I mean, because it's not only the diversity issue, it's at the same time the performance issue, at the same time acquiring the talents. So when we say talent, it doesn't mean that it's the education from the very Ivy League universities or so. It means the talent means performing their business with its maximum standards, right? So, but it starts with the educational system catering the needs and preparing them to the business life. And then airlines, I mean, if I talk on behalf of Pegasus, of course we'll be ready to recruit.
I think one thing I would add is that I think we have loads of leaders in our business already that are neurodiverse. I think it's becoming an increasingly safe environment for them to share that. They've had coping strategies, they've perhaps even felt the need to hide their neurodiversity for many years and have had successful careers. I was talking with a leader who has started to reveal to colleagues they have dyslexia. 20 years in, very successful leader, but it's been not something they've chosen to disclose to others. And I think if we could create the right environment, we do get to know people and they feel confident in sharing those, then we can start to talk to them about what further support can we provide as a business to help them to really thrive.
Okay, thank you so much. We're at time. Thank you for attending our Lift Off to Leadership panel. I'd like to say a huge thanks to our wonderful Inclusive Leaders panel. Thank you.